Brasil. Muito obrigado por estarem com a gente de novo. A gente já está no quarto dia da ALT Week Brasil 2024. E antes de começar, eu vou fazer a minha audiodescrição também. Eu sou um homem branco, eu tenho barba, eu tenho olhos e cabelos castanhos. E hoje eu escolhi um fundo virtual dos 90 anos do British Council. É uma honra estar aqui com vocês hoje. A gente vai conversar um pouco com a Louise Weston. Ela é professora e formadora de professores. A Louise começou a lecionar há quase 20 anos e seu trabalho levou a países do Sudeste Asiático, do Oriente Médio e da Europa, onde ela trabalhou em sistemas educacionais privados e regulares também. Hoje em dia, Louise é gerente sênior de comunidade de práticas, especificamente para a área de língua inglesa do British Council. Então, sem mais, eu deixo vocês com a Louise.
Hope you're well today. My name is Louise. I live in Portugal in Europe, and I'm a former primary level teacher for English language. Before moving here to Portugal, I've lived and worked in several countries around the world. So in the Middle East, I've lived and worked in places like Jordan and Syria, and over in Asia in places like Thailand and Vietnam. I've been teaching for over 20 years, and obviously, as we all know, it's very much one of those jobs that you do where you're constantly learning and evolving and changing the way that you practice and what you do in the classroom. So what I'm hoping to do today is to share with you one such way that you can continue to learn and grow so that you continue to evolve as a teacher, and hopefully the job also gets easier for you and more manageable, because we all know that it is a stressful job with many demands. So to kind of tackle this, it's a bit of a big topic, I appreciate. I'm going to share with you my PowerPoint, and just let me open it here. There we go. And we're going to talk about effective communities of practice. Now, first of all, don't worry if you're like, I'm not sure what a community of practice is. I will come on and we'll talk about that. What I really care about today is talking about how we make development work for you. So based on that, let's go to the first slide. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different contexts. But it's very important that because of our differences, we have the freedom to choose what we learn, how we learn, when we learn, how much we can learn, and to honestly to be kind to ourselves a little bit. I would love to think, or I would have loved to think when I first started teaching, that I could spend every waking minute reading lots of articles, attending loads of webinars, and learning very, very quickly as much as I could. But the reality is, teaching is a very big job. It's a full-time job. It takes a lot of time. Add into that any kind of family commitments, your interests, your friends, your social life, and you're running out of time really to kind of like continue to develop. So I think we should all be honest about how much time we've got. And I'm hoping today to show you lots of kind of different ways that you might learn, that allow you to do it in a way that suits your lifestyle and who you are. So the process of taking the initiative, like learning your own way, setting your own goals, and being realistic about how much time you can give, is called self-directed learning. We are going to look at communities of practice, but I would be wrong to say they are the only form of self-directed learning. They're not. So before we delve into communities, let's first of all watch this video together. So sorry, I've told you that today we're going to talk about communities of practice, but I would be wrong to start by saying that communities of practice are the only way that you can do self-directed learning. They're not. So first of all, let's clarify what self-directed learning could look like before we move more closely and look into what communities of practice are and how they might help you. So this is the Teaching English website, and this is a great example of self-directed learning. The reason being, there are lots of different ways that many of us prefer to learn, lots of different forms. Some of us may prefer to watch something, others of us might prefer to listen, we might prefer to read, we might prefer to trial something. Teaching English has something for all of us, really. So if I just very quickly show you what self-directed learning examples look like here on the Teaching English website. First of all, we've got professional development, something that we are all interested in. We all wish to be better teachers, both for our students, but also I'm sure to make our own lives easier. You know, the more that we build our professional repertoire, maybe the easier we can make our jobs. Here below in the professional development are lots of different subject areas or areas of teaching that we might wish to know more about, and you can go and take a look and see everything that is there. There could be articles to read, there might be webinars to watch. If you're interested in research and case studies and reading more about what other people have done in their classrooms, because you learn through knowing what others have done, what's worked and what hasn't, then you might be interested in some of the research which can be found here. Personally, I'm a big fan of lesson plans, and I'm a big fan of like trialing new things in the classroom myself and seeing how they work, and then doing them again and hopefully making them better than they were the first time. And if this is you, you may wish to come and use some lesson plans or some other kinds of teaching resources, and they can all be found here as well. I know lots of teachers talk about the need to kind of sit and listen to others and to hear them explain what they've been doing. It's not always enough just to read about what they've done. If this is you, you might prefer webinars. And Teaching English, for example, host on a monthly basis a series of webinars that teachers can join for free. In November, we've got an event teaching the 4 skills. So looking obviously at listening, reading, writing and speaking in the English language classroom. If that's something that interests you and you'd like to join this, you can just click on the link here and go and sign up and register for the event. But maybe, and I mean, this is also me a little bit, you might prefer training courses. Personally, time-wise, I can probably commit to maybe 1 or 2 courses every year, but I do like to do them. They're a great way to really kind of delve deeper into some of the problems or challenges that I'm experiencing, to learn more about them. Teaching English always has a range of courses on offer that are open for us to all join. You can find out which ones are currently open here on the website, and you can join them also via the website. So these are all different ways that you can do self-directed learning. Yeah, you can read something, you can do something like a lesson plan, you can watch something like a webinar or another kind of event format. You can actually do a course, and then maybe in there's lots of teaching ideas you can also take and trial in your classroom. There's lots of different ways that we can have this freedom. The one that I personally prefer and that we're going to focus on today, however, is communities of practice. And so from this point forward, the examples I'm going to share are actually communities, ones that are digital, they're fully online. And I'll be talking to you a little bit about why I think they are the best option for learning for me. Okay, so without any delay, let's move into what is a community of practice. The best way I find to describe it is this way. It's a group of people who come together because they have something in common. Maybe it's the job that they do, maybe it's an interest that they have, but by talking to each other, learning through each other, they're able to kind of like progress to learn more about whatever it is that they have in common. Thinking about teaching, okay, think about your own context where you work. Do you already have one of these? Do you have a community of practice? I'd be quite surprised if you didn't, but I'd be interested to know if you do. So please tell us down below in the comments and in the chat if you do. Sorry. Many of us have a community of practice in the sense that we have a staff room quite often. Not all of us do. Obviously, we have different contexts. Some of us work online where maybe there's not so much as a physical staff room. But for those of us who work in schools, quite often we are around our colleagues and we're able to learn and exchange from them. I know that in the past, particularly when I've had maybe students who've had particular needs, and I haven't really been sure how to cater for them, I've had to go to colleagues and ask them for advice. It's always great to hear from any former teachers about what they did and what strategies they used at work, if that's possible. Likewise, if there's something new that's happening, and right now everyone's talking about like AI, for example, and how this might impact the English language classroom. If you and another colleague, you're both really excited about the topic, you might think that it's a really good idea to come together and to trial some lessons and use AI in your classes and see how it goes. If you're doing any of these things that I've just described, you're in a community of practices in essence. And I'm sure you'll agree, if you think about your own staff room, they're really kind of fruitful, valuable spaces because they teach us how to reflect. They teach us how to evaluate. Whether we're doing it particularly consciously or subconsciously, we're all the time thinking, oh, that didn't work, or that did work, or oh, I could learn from them. This is evaluation, even if we don't think it is because we're not always writing it down. Learning from others is a good way to avoid mistakes, but we're always going to make mistakes. And to be honest, we some of our best learning actually comes through them, but it is good to hear what others have done and also to feel comforted that they've done the same as us. It's a great place also to get new information, to stay up to date. Teaching changes all the time, and trying to keep up to date with all the information can be quite challenging. If, like me, you're someone who enjoys that kind of interaction and needs to talk to other teachers, they're a great place to feel kind of less lonely or less isolated in your job, to know that other people are facing the same challenges. And for me, this is particularly this kind of emotional support is really important. And also, I benefit greatly from being able to talk about things. We all have learning preferences and the way that we prefer to kind of take in information. And one of the main ways I do is by having a dialogue and conversation with others. So this is what a community of practice is: a group of people who have something in common in our respect, it's teaching, and we all want to get better at it, and we all want to talk about it. So in today's session, we've already clarified what self-directed learning is. So we know already that this is the freedom to choose what you do. And we've defined what a community of practice is. But what I'd really like to focus on for the majority of the session is giving you the kind of the power and the guidance to go away from today thinking, okay, I'm already in a community, or I'd like to join a community, but how can I make the most of it? What's the best way to approach the community? What should I be doing in the community to get the most out of it, to develop my teaching? So hopefully we're going to look at this in the next few steps, and we're going to end the day with a Q&A. So we're going to go through 5 different steps. And the first one is taking charge of your development. Now that might sound simple, you know, I think deciding you want to develop is probably the first step. But then thinking very carefully about what are your actual specific goals. So in my instance right now, I've just told you I was a teacher for 20 years, and I'm a little bit out of the classroom. I do go in it sometimes. I do some voluntary teaching, but I'm a little bit out of it. But what I want to do is to maintain my skills and my knowledge, because I'm conscious that it's very likely someday that I will be back in the classroom, and I want to keep my knowledge going. So my interest is quite broad. I'm not looking to improve one area, but I want to kind of stay up to date with everything that's going on. And then the second point is thinking very carefully about choosing what and when and how to learn. Okay, so like this real ownership, this kind of sense of empowerment of this what you're doing. And we're going to watch a very short video in which you will learn a little bit more about me and about how I learn and how communities benefit me. So you already know a little bit about me. I've told you already that I'm very invested in my personal development, but you know, I have to be realistic. I have limitations on my time. I've got young children to look after. And it's for this reason that I like communities, particularly communities like this one, which is Teaching English British Council, and you can find it on Facebook. I happen to be on Facebook. That's great. So I'm already there. I've found a community in a place where I go and visit, not every day, but I go probably into Facebook a few times a week. I also like social media because it is very much on my own terms. So obviously, I mean, I've actually personally, I turn off my notifications so I don't have it reminding me all the time. But you know, when I've got 5 or 10 minutes, quite often actually on like a Friday evening, if I've got a bit of time, I can sit and look and catch up and see what's been happening. But it's very much on my own terms. And I also feel like I'm not missing out. Like I don't have to be there at a live event in order to make the most of it. And this is really for me the big benefit of social media. I can go onto the page like this one for the Teaching English, and I can take a look basically through the feed and see everything that I missed since the last time I looked. And you know, some of the things that they share, maybe they're not really of interest to me, but others are. And I just like the variety that it offers for me. So like here, for example, at the start of October, there'll be a 3-day World Teachers Day event. There are 18 webinars. That's a lot of webinars, I appreciate. But, you know, what it means is there's something there for everybody. So I'm actually really quite interested in this, and I'm going to go and take a look and see what the sessions are. I actually know to help me do this, I saw a bit earlier on today that Teaching English is also sharing videos like this one. So I really like things like this where it's not just, would you like to go and see this webinar? I can actually learn more about it before I attend, you know, when I choose which ones I want to go to. This here was the speaker who's going to be in the webinar telling me what to expect and get out and what I can get out of her session. I find that really, really useful, if I'm being honest. It helps me to decide what I wish to join up to. Here, this is a live event that's recently happened. It says it was a day ago. It's a very practical tip live event. It's 30 minutes in length. It's about what challenges have been faced with technology in the classroom. Now, actually, I'm someone who I get very nervous when there are challenges with technology in the classroom. I would actually be very interested in this, but also because, as I've said, how do I learn? I learn by listening to others. I learn by interacting with others, and I learn through a wider discussion. It's not enough for me to just read something or just hear something. I have to hear kind of counter opinions. I have to hear what others have to say, and hearing like a variety of opinions actually helps me better to form my own opinion and my own kind of like strategies and approaches to something. So I really like events like this where people are kind of discussing and chatting and probably coming up with very different ideas, because obviously in teaching there is no one answer and no one size fits all. So I'm going to go back to that event later. But I also love social media because, you know, it is your friend if you are time short. Here, this is a reel. It's a very short video. It's telling me how to put an idea into practice. It's a bit of visual. It's a little bit, it's got, it's in some audio. It's a bit of everything. And I like multimedia and multimodal learning. I value having a little bit of everything. And likewise, as we move through, you can see there's just quite a variety of different things, whether it's audio, whether it's telling me about an event, whether it's actual practical teaching tips like this, for example. Great issues with sound when when the sound's not coming out of the machine, what can I do? It's great to have backup and ideas of things that I might actually do. So for me, social media is fantastic because it allows me to see a variety of different things, and then I can pick and choose which work for me and which I want to know more about. Okay. So there, sorry, just jumped through the slides. You saw me explaining why I might join like the Facebook Teaching English group. I've told you, I really want to keep on top of things. I've got quite broad interests, but even if I didn't have broad and I wanted to learn something specific, I could do that too in the same space. I need something very flexible, and I need something that maybe doesn't have fixed times on it, you know, so it's that flexibility of I can do it when I have time myself. So tip number 1, take charge of your development. Tip number 2, okay, purposefulness, intention. It would be very easy to look at a community or to, you know, and to see everything that's on offer and think, oh, I want to do everything. Of course it would. So I need to keep in mind that actually, like I've said, I'm quite time short. So what am I going to do and how am I going to behave in this community in a way that is quite realistic of like my timing. So there's some tips coming up about how you can use the functionality of a community. Now, if you're meeting face to face, your community of practice is face to face, you've got a lot of kind of like control. You can talk about best times to meet with the people that you're there with, and you can talk about how you want to kind of manage the kind of chats that you have. In a digital space, it's just different, that's all. In a digital space, depending on the space, you've got different kind of functions and different ways of kind of like looking around the space. So what I'm going to focus on in this video is a bit of like how to make the most of search tools, how to know what you can do on a platform so that you can be very intentional with the kind of learning that you wish to have. Okay, so let's watch this video. It might seem a little silly or unusual to have a favorite tip, but I actually think that being purposeful, being intentional in your use is my favorite tip. And the reason is it's because it's about time at the end of the day. And also not trying to be overwhelmed with the amount of information that is out there. Now, in the last video, we scrolled, we went through the feed and saw everything on offer. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I've already told you that I kind of like learning through lesson plans. I like learning through doing. So I should make use of the functionality of the space that I'm in. So this is a community of practice, but it has a search feature. Most communities do, most digital ones do. So I can come here, and I've told you that I like lesson plans. I like to do a lesson, see how it goes, trial it again with another group, perfect it, make it better. So that's exactly what I should look for. I'm here in this community, but I don't want everything it's showing me. I do have certain resources that I prefer, so I should look for them. So this one here is about using AI. Now, I actually teach primary students in the main part, so I'm probably not going to use this because there is a minimum age for using AI in the classroom, and I'd need to also get parent consent. But there will be other lesson plans here that come up in the feed. You can see I'm rolling past a few here. This one stands out to me a lot because, I mean, first of all, it's for primary learners. It's about friends and friendship. And I know for a fact, my students love to, I say, talk about this topic, but they like to talk about their relationships. It's something that they're going through in their lives. They're increasing kind of the number of people in their lives. I think that would be a very nice one to talk about. It's the right level for them. It's A1. So my students are about elementary level, and this makes sense for them. I did actually skip past it. Now it looked a bit too hard for my students. It's B1, but I think I'm still going to take a look at this one because they're primary learners. They are really interested right now, and my students in like geography and history and local events. So a lesson plan here about heritage and about, you know, where you live and the monuments and sites. I think maybe I can adapt it a bit. So, you know, I'm coming on. I want lesson plans. I want new things to trial. I should use the functionality here in this space that allows me to do that. So I type that in, and I've typed in lesson plan and it's brought up all the different kinds of lesson plans. So I think number one, yeah, be intentional. Look for what you want. Okay. If you're not sure what you want or you're not sure how to use the space, I think like lots of us are on social media or we're in apps, but we probably don't know all the different functions and things. If it's a space like this one for teaching English, they actually do show you how you can use the space. Okay. And I think that's really kind of important. So if you click here, like we said on the video section, first of all, it's going to show us some of the more recent videos. But if we just move down here, we've got how to find teaching English events and resources. And we've got a series of videos about how I can share a post. So I can share it with my friends. If I think there's going to be a really good event that's going to benefit all the other teachers that I work with, I can share it with them. If I want to save something, I think this is really important. So like I've just shown you lesson plans, yeah, and it's probably that I want to remember them and I want to go back to them in the future. There are here videos showing me how to do everything. So like how to save on Instagram, how to save on Facebook, how to learn about and join events on Facebook. Do look out on in your communities for any kind of how-to guides, any kind of showing you how to like use the space to most effect. I think this is really kind of like useful feature. So if we went again and I said like lesson plan, and I really liked that one about friendship. I actually do know how to save. I've already done it before, but I do think it's it's worth making sure we all know how to use the spaces that we're in. I can come and I can add it and I can save this one, for example. So I'm going to save the link and I would just press here and it would be in my saved items. Okay. So you'll see that actually in my saved items, it's got different categories. This is about teaching and I would add to teaching. So follow the tips, learn how to use each space effectively. Okay, so without further ado, after we talked about being intentional, my third tip for you today is also to be, I say constantly critical. I don't mean like all the time, but be critical of the resources of you, be critical a bit of how you're changing, and are you continuing to use the best of resources available to you? So like, colleagues might recommend, for example, that there is a really interesting blog that we should be reading. It'd be worth going to take, if my colleague thinks it's worthwhile, I should probably go and take a look because we work in the same context. It's that kind of, you know where you want to go, but you're just keeping a little eye out all the time to make sure that you're in the right place for you, because I think it's really important that you're somewhere that you feel at home if it's a community, and that you're doing the things that are making the biggest difference to your learning. Okay, so if we're talking about communities, and I've showed you so far the Facebook community that exists, it's important to know if there are other communities available to me and where they might be. So let's explore this a little bit. I should never be afraid to say I've changed and I do things differently now. We all change over time and evolve. So with this one, what I think with communities, the big thing is if you're in a digital community and you're finding real value from it, you enjoy the community, but maybe it's in a space that you don't really want to be in anymore. Do go and look for alternatives. Do go and check out what else there is. So like we've been using Teaching English as our example today. You may or may not wish to remain in Facebook. There are always alternatives, and be critical and go and check that you're in the right place for you. You might prefer, for example, to be in Instagram. You're not going to miss out. It's the exact same kinds of information that you're going to be getting. Yes, it's slightly altered because it fits Instagram's format, but a lot of the things we've seen today are still there. You can go at the top, you've got the highlights, I can find my lesson plans very easily. This really appeals to me, as you know, because this is something that I really like, and the practical teaching tips. Also, there's the how-to, so I know about how to use the space, how to save, how to do whatever it is that I'd like to do. So all I have to do is go on and follow it. Obviously, I've used the example there of Instagram, but there are communities in lots of different spaces. I mean, I'm talking about teaching English today. We're also on YouTube. So if you just like looking at videos and you just want to see short tips and webinars, you might go there as well. But like always be critical of the resources that you're using. Make sure that they suit your needs and that you're doing what you want to do. Okay. Tip number 4, interaction. This one is a little bit, I suppose, it's the most difficult one really, because some people genuinely just enjoy to sit and watch and see what other people are saying. Okay. And I completely understand that. You will know yourself well. But if you are like me and like many other people like me, you might find that like actually asking questions, sharing opinions, it allows you to get a deeper sense of learning. It helps you to kind of remember what it is that you're kind of talking about and these new ideas a bit more. Obviously, know yourself and know what you prefer. But do you like seek opportunities to interact? Are you engaging with others? So like I've already said, are you asking questions? Are you sharing resources? If you're in a community, this is it's the real essence of the value of a community and why I really like them, because there's so many different like things that get shared from different people's perspectives. So I'm going to show you now like 2 different videos, showing you how you might interact in a community, because there are different ways that you can do this. Okay, I'll play the first one. So one of the kinds of things that quite often happens in a teaching community is someone will ask a question just to start the discussion. So an example here is, what's stopping you from using AI in your teaching? Now, when questions are asked, there are lots of ways really, I say, you can participate. It might seem that the obvious way is obviously to reply to the question. And that, of course, is one way that you can participate. But what I would say is, there'll be lots of other teachers with very different and varied experiences. So like in this example here, you can see that we've got 213 comments. Okay. So if we were to go down and we were to go and have a look, and we were to have a look at all comments, one way that we can actually learn a bit more for ourselves is to take a look at what others are saying. Like what are their answers to this question? Are they the same? Are they different to mine? I would very much recommend as well, like people chat to one another. If you read something that someone's written and you think that it's very interesting, it's great to reply and respond to that. So like an example here on the Teaching English Facebook page, we've got lots of people, we have a look, sorry. We've got lots of people saying, yeah, it saves me so much time. And then lots of people then come on and ask and say, which one and how did you get started and how can you please share? And you'll see that teachers are there talking, asking questions of each other. So in a community, when people ask a question, go and answer, of course, but read others' answers, ask them questions. Think about why it may be similar for them or different for them, and try to learn as much as you can from the answers of others as well. Okay, seeing a question and answering a question seems a fairly obvious way to interact. But there are other ways that you can interact in a digital community. And I'm just going to show you one more way because it's a bit more subtle. It might be that you're not being asked an obvious question. So let's take a look at this video to see another example. It doesn't have to be an obvious question. If you're in a community and, for example, people are sharing resources, they do quite often share them with a question. Okay, so they're not just answering a question. They're saying, look, for example, here, I like to use WhatsApp in my classroom. Do you like to use it in yours? Like, what are your ideas and how do you use it too? When you have a look here, you'll see that again, we've got 20 answers to this, people telling us how they use it. If you don't use it at all, you might be interested to go in and think, okay, I don't use it. I mean, like, and maybe consider, could I, should I? And a great way for us to really think if it's something worthwhile for us is to take a look what others are saying. Are they using it in context that we ourselves could use it in? Is their situation very different? And as you can see, people are putting really quite detailed answers to the question here, which tells you that they add a lot of kind of insight, they give a lot of tips on how you might do it yourselves. So don't just think it has to be about an explicit question. When something is shared, when an idea is shared, use that opportunity to talk and to discuss and critique it with those who are in the community too. Okay, so you can see there's more than one way to interact, but I would definitely advocate for interacting if you join a community of practice. It is definitely the way to really make the most of the space. And my final tip, and not unsurprisingly, this is something we ask our own students to do, and obviously we ask ourselves to do, but kind of reflect. You know, am I regularly reflecting on my progress and my teaching practice? And do I adjust my strategies? So far today, we've looked mainly at communities of practice, and I've shown you that, you know, I've got quite broad interests. I told you I like learning through doing lesson plans. I've shown you examples of how I might navigate a community, how I use the tips, how I use search, how I get involved and add comments. But maybe, especially in the holidays when I've got more time, my learning strategies change a little bit. And I think, oops, maybe I want to do a course. And if that's the case, you know, just keep reflecting on what it is that you need, what it is that you want, and be open to change you like what you're doing and to go and look for something else if you need to. I mentioned earlier in our session that, you know, I have a real preference for variety. I like to be in communities, I like to discuss, I like to talk, but I also like to trial things. And maybe like one example I gave is I like to use lesson plans. But I also mentioned that sometimes, for example, I like to do courses. So it's important when I reflect and I think, right, okay, what can I do at what time? So for me, I tend to find that in the longer holidays when I've got them, I might have time, for example, to do a course. So if I think, right, I've got time to do a course, am I in the right place? Do I have enough support? Now, I told you earlier on that Teaching English has some free courses that you can join, and they're self-access, and you can go online and you can do them all on your own. But if I'm being honest, I don't really learn that way. I need the discussion. I need to talk to others about problems that I face. I enjoy hearing their own experiences. So for me, that level, that kind of interaction, that personalizing of our problems, it's really important for me in order to actually kind of learn and to understand something. So if you're like me and you're doing a course, like one way of doing this that I might do is I might decide that I need to actually join another community that's going to help me to meet my new goals. Particularly when I'm doing a course, I find it's really helpful to be supported and to talk to others who are doing the course. Now, again, we're back in Facebook and we're in the British Council Courses for Teachers group. And my reason to quickly show you this is to show how this can help, for example, when I want to do a course. They do lots of courses and there are several running at the same time. I'm not going to take them all. That would seem a little bit too much for me, but I am going to take some of them. Now, if I go to the guides section of the Facebook group, it's a very easy way for me to navigate around. Straight away, it tells me where everything is and how to use the Facebook group, okay? And then the guides that come next are the guides that belong to the courses that are currently live and that people can take part in. So one that I've been working on recently is this one, which is the key digital skills. So if ever I want to quickly navigate and find all the different kinds of resources and posts and questions and everything that relates to this course, I can come here. And as you can see, in this guide, It shows me all the different discussions and the links to everything that people have talked about in relation to digital skills course, okay? How we might give advice to people, copying images of the internet. So let's take an example. Let's do some new teaching ideas. When I click on that, it will take me directly to the post. It's just going to take a second to come up. And then I can take a look at it and I can get involved with it and I can add to it, ask my own questions, and I can navigate the group this way. So I come into a different community sometimes when I'm reflecting and I make sure I'm in the right place to do what I want to do. And for me, when I'm, like I said, doing a course, it really helps for me to be supported in that. Okay. So being reflective, being willing to like think, is this working for me? And if it is, brilliant, stick with it. And if it isn't, that's fine, change it. The last I say the last bit I want to focus on is like kind of a recap of it all. So, I mean, we've looked predominantly here at communities of practice, and I've said they're very similar to like a physical classroom. It's a group of people coming together who've got something in common. For us, we're teachers, so we want to talk about teaching. And you've seen today a few examples. You've seen an example of a community in Facebook. You've seen an example in Instagram. I told you there's one in YouTube. You've looked at an example of a community that is a Facebook group that is specifically for courses. These are all obviously social media ones, but they all exist as well in messaging apps. And it could be that the teachers in the community where you live, they're all part of a WhatsApp group, and that's something you could join. And that is a community of practice. And if you really want to make the most of these spaces and you want to take charge of your learning in like a self-directed learning way, the 5 top tips, just to recap, are take charge, be purposeful, be critical all the time as well, interact, get involved. I mean, that is, as well as be purposeful, that is my top one. And reflect. And it's fine to change your mind and to think, oh, actually, this isn't working for me. On the other side of the screen, you'll see what I've done is I made a word cloud actually using ChatGPT with nouns that like I thought reflected these are the kinds of skills that you need in order to be able to do self-directed learning. And I hope you agree with me that these are actually already the skills that any teacher needs, any teacher has, because of the context in which we work, you know. So good time management. We do it every day when we structure our lesson plans. Thinking skills, like what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? What's the best way to do it? Setting goals, having a vision, being clear, and being quite strategic in what we do. But you'll see other ones as well, like empathy, listening, you know, all the skills that we ourselves bring to the classroom. These are very much the skills that we should be, I say, bringing ourselves a little bit in our own professional development. So our professional development can very much reflect what we're actually doing in the classroom. So today, we did clarify what self-directed learning is, and I told you there are lots of examples, but the one that I wanted to talk about was communities of practice, otherwise known as COPs. We looked at what they are and we defined one. We've then gone through some practical strategies for like how you might join and how you might make the most of a community, how you might search it, how you might set goals for it, how you might look for particular things that you want, how you will reflect, how you will talk to others and reflect on what they're saying and take their feedback into account. So I hope you agree that we've met the aims of our session today. Obviously, we're going to end with a Q&A, but before we do, just to let you know, there'll be 2 takeaways. So there's going to be the checklist that I've gone through today that you'll all be able to get hold of. And it will help you focus on your own self-directed learning. You may want to join a community, but if you don't want to join a community and you think, nope, webinars are for me, or you might think that just, you know, taking lesson plans and trialing them in your lessons is the way you want to go. That's absolutely fine. But I'll give you the checklist and you can use it to help you kind of like make sure you're on track with your own learning. But I'll also be including links to all of the resources that I've showed you today. One such example is at the beginning, we started with the Teaching English website. I'll be providing you with the QR code so that you can go, you can find it, and if you wish to take a look, you can go and access it yourselves. But lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and good luck with your learning journeys. And I hope you enjoy them. I think that is probably the most important thing. And just be kind to yourselves. We all want to learn, but we should definitely do it at our own pace. So thank you very much for joining me today.
So much. We have a lot of comments, a lot of questions, and yes, people interacting on the chat on YouTube. We have people from Mexico. We have people from Paraná, from Pernambuco, from Minas Gerais, São Paulo. So all over the place, not just Brazil. So we're happy to have you guys. Actually, Louise is here with us today. Louise, thank you so much for joining us, especially considering that we are in different time zones. We appreciate your time and your flexibility. Um, some of the questions that we have for you and some of the comments as well. For example, we have the first one. I've only started to notice that community of practices also offer emotional support to participants. What do you make of this? You talked about this at the beginning of your
Mhm.
lecture.
I mean, obviously, I think teaching can be quite isolating, really, because we have lots of teachers around us, maybe in our schools, but we're actually on our own in that classroom. And can be quite hard to kind of get advice because you're there with your students. And that is why I like a community of practice, because actually, for once, we are not there on our own and we're surrounded by other people. And personally, I get a lot of reassurance knowing that it's not just me. So, when we get to the end of a day, we had a problem in our class, perhaps there is a student that we're finding quite difficult to manage or to support. Having someone to go to say what your problem is, um, I find a lot of value, even if people can't give me tips and suggestions, just knowing that they have the same issue is actually very reassuring, and makes me feel a lot better about myself. So I do think there is a lot of emotional value out there in a community. To be heard and to be listened to is just as important as to be given advice.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay, we have another question. For example, if a teacher educator wants to use a Facebook community of practice to support their delivery of a course, what do you think are the top three safeguarding risks that they should consider and try to mitigate?
Very good question. How to keep it to three. I
Yes.
think what I would say is if you're delivering a course, you probably have a certain number of people that are going to, if you're a teacher educator, there are certain teachers that you're going to want on your course. So first of all, if it's a Facebook group, I would think about keeping it private and making sure that only those who are taking the course have access. Because that way, everyone who's there feels they can share their opinions freely, and everyone there is actually doing the course. I think that's kind of important. I would also say for number two, I would set ground rules. It's very much like our classroom. We have rules in our classrooms with our students. These can be rules that we agree with our learners. And in a community of practice, it's the same thing. You bring together a group of people, and I think we can agree on how and when we will interact. I think that is also very important. And lastly, for safeguarding, I would I would say that as much as teachers, we obviously want to share scenarios of what's happened in the classroom. And it's important that we can so that we can grow. We also have to remember that we shouldn't be sharing any personal information, both of ourselves, but also of our students, because they have a right to privacy as well. So I think those would be my top three for someone setting a Facebook group.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Also, next question. What do you think are the challenges of having a community of practice without any moderation or leadership?
A lot. I'll be honest with you. I mean, the vast majority that I'm involved with have a degree of moderation. And if not moderation, there's actually one that I lead on where I don't moderate, and the people I work with, we don't moderate, but we do still monitor it. Obviously, an absolutely true, pure community of practice is somewhere where you wouldn't have a moderator. But I think to make sure that this, again, the space is safe, you will have ground rules, and you probably need somebody in place to make sure that the ground rules are held. Now, if there's a group of you, I would say that's a role that you could share in the group. You know, someone takes it each month, but just reminding everyone, that person whose job it is to say politely, if anyone's a bit disrespectful or something, please remember, we all agreed that we would come here and we would share and we would help each other. Please, can we not have comments like this, for example? So like, it's not moderation, but it is a little bit of leadership in there.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. So, Louise, thank you so much once again, joining us all the way from Portugal. So we appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for your comments and your questions on the chat. Make sure to come back at 4 p.m. Brazilian time for more sessions and more information on the ELT Week Brazil 2024. Louise, do you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
Oh, it's fine. You've heard a lot of me in the last hour, mas obrigada a todos. Okay.
Obrigado você. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.